Hello everyone. Welcome to the live analysis of Exact Cat 3. Once again, the Exact Cat 3 was on the lines of last 3 years cat paper pattern with having 25 questions in verbal, 24 questions in data interpretation and 25 questions in quant. Let's start with the DILR section. Now, the first set of DILR section was based on groups and conditionality where the constraints were given to you that there are six men's out of which three are junior and three are seniors. There are six women again divided into junior and senior category, and they are going to play some doubles match. Okay, it could be a mixed doubles, or it could be men's double, or it could be a women doubles, right? And there was some constraint given that A cannot be paired with K. Okay, if C will pair only with a senior person in the team. So constraint were given, and according on and based on the constraint, uh, you have to solve a set. Now, however, the set was not very easy, but looking at the other five sets, this set was a must do. Okay, probably 8 minutes into the set, and you could have run through it. A 90 percentiler student who is aiming at somewhere more than 90 percentile should definitely attempt this set. Okay, let's move to the next set now. The next set, when the first set was based on the groups and conditionality, the second set was based on calculation. Okay, this is one table, and there was another bar graph which was given to you, right? Generally, the calculation sets are the favorite one for the students who are attempting it, because it's easy. Calculator is given to you, right? So it becomes easy to calculate. Maybe it would take time, but then you can do it. However, here it was not purely calculation. You had to apply some logic and then do the calculation work. Okay, so again, this set was very easy. Okay, compared to the other five sets. Okay, compared to the other five sets, this set was very easy, and anyone who's attempting this paper should have definitely attempted this set. You would have taken around 10 odd minutes, because there were some little lengthy calculations were involved. Okay, and every question had some extra information starting with if. Okay, so that would take a little more time. uh, Anyone who's attempting this paper, as I mentioned earlier, should have definitely attempted. If you are missing out on this set, probably it becomes difficult to reach maybe at 95 percentile or above benchmark. Okay, so anyone who is attempting and aiming at more than 85 percentile, could have attempted 85. I mean, you would see the cutoff of this paper, right? Moving on to the third set. Now, if you look at this third set, at the first look, it seems very easy, straightforward set, one based on matrix or a grid arrangement kind of thing. Okay, but when you start solving, it's not purely based on matrix arrangement. There is reasoning involved. There is where there is reasoning involved that if B cannot have ultimate pens, then C would have Russell pen or Prennet pens and everything. There was some reasoning involved. Okay, apart from the data which was given directly, there were some inferences which were supposed to be made while solving the set. Okay, there was some data which you need to infer. Okay, which you need to assume and then solve the set. Okay, makes it little challenging as compared to the first two set. But however, 10 minutes was more than sufficient to crack the set. And this set, I would rate it at a level where someone who is aiming at getting it around 98 percentile or above. Okay, so we saw the first two sets, which was 85 percentile and 90 percentile, achieving that benchmark. This set is something where you could attain a 98 percentile. Okay, now one important thing about this set was, until and unless you solve the entire set, you would not be able to solve any single question. Okay, So it was not like other set where you solve half the set and you will be able to crack one or two questions. No, not in this set at least. The fourth set was a gem of a question. Okay. uh, so the six ladies, the names were given: Sharon, Leta, Tanya, Sloka, Afreen, and Meher. These are six hairstylists, and they have number of customers coming in and the number of treatments they have given. Okay, and some conditions were given that one customer can have one treatment with only one hairstylist, and some other informations were conditions were given. Each and every question had to deal with minimizing or maximizing certain stuff. Okay, and all the four questions were key in, and that makes this set the most difficult one. Okay, I'm not saying it's not crackable, it's not doable. Okay, it's doable, but given the fact you have to maximize and minimize the thing in all the four questions, and all the four questions were key in, which means you don't even know whether the options are matching or not, which makes this set little difficult. And ideally this set should have been kept for the last go. Okay, maybe around 10 minutes, maybe for someone who is good at maximizing and minimizing, maybe less than 10 minutes, 8 minutes could have been a deal. Okay, uh, this set was something that should have been kept for the end, and maybe the one who is aiming at 99 percentile or above should have attempted this set. Otherwise, you know there was no point in attempting a set which is of this caliber. Moving on to the next set, a very unconventional data interpretation, I would say. At the first go you would see, oh, this is very simple, but then if you look at the data carefully, there are no units mentioned. Okay, you don't know what does this blue, what does this blue bar, and how much is the unit of this, because the main passage, the main paragraph clearly mentioned that it gives you a comparative data. Okay, so you need to count this vertical bar, the blue vertical bar, and this orange, this almost, this is 1:1. Okay, this is probably, you need to count how many blue bars are there and how many pink color bars are there, and you get a ratio. Okay, and these are the basically number of chairs, and number of chairs which originally had, and number of chairs which this was number of masks which were originally there, and number of masks which were manufactured by NGO. The ratio were given. Again, how many were sold. Okay, from, and on the basis of this information, you have to again solve the set. Some of the question had to deal with the maximizing and minimizing stuff. Was a pretty lengthy set, because you need to deal with variables. There were 4 variables for each day, and then at the end you start solving the equation simultaneously. And even if you solve the equation, you don't get all the variables, wherein that comes the angle of maximizing and minimizing stuff. Could have taken 12 odd minutes if you want to complete the set. Again, probably should not have been attempted. Okay, because the previous set which were based on hairstylists, that was relatively easy, not easy, but easier than this. Okay, maybe anyone who's aiming at 99.500 percentile, something in this range, maybe should have touched it. But again, without touching this set, you could have scored that range. 99.5 was manageable without even touching this set. Okay, now coming to the last set. The last set was a purely maths based set, where there are 6 builders and they are capturing some sectors, and they are constructing some buildings in each of the sectors. The total area was given to you, total number of buildings were given, and then there was some relation. Okay, so the relation, all the data was given with respect to arithmetic progression and geometric progression, where the first builder has, the difference between the number of building by the first and the second builder is same as that between the second and third builder. Okay, the area captured, the area covered by the first, second, and third builder are in geometric progression in that order. So you have to deal with maths, you need to deal with calculation. uh, Time consuming if you are not good at if you're not good at the concepts of arithmetic progression, geometric progression. However, if you can directly plug in the values, random numbers, by because 1750 is not a bad number to deal with, 24 is not a bad number to deal with, right? So if you just plug in some values, do trial and error, maybe you can get it very quick. But however, 8 minutes, even if you solve, the proper, if you solve this question by proper equation, framing equation and everything, you could have still completed this set in 8 minutes. Okay. uh, Again, 98 percentile should have attempted this set. So if you look at the entire paper, it has a mix of variety of questions. The first set based on groups and conditionality. The second set was based on calculation. Okay, graphs was given. The third set was based on maximizing and minimizing stuff. Right. Then there was fourth step which based on unconventional traditional DI. Then there was this set which was based on maths based application, and there was one more set in between. Okay, which was again the pen one set. Okay, the which was a matrix grid kind of arrangement. So it has a mix of uh, varieties of set. Okay, now let's look at the percentile and the score mapping. So if you look at 98 percentile, that's 34 marks. Okay, if I look at 34 marks, okay, after completing the paper, if I look at it, 36 marks, which means 12 questions, which means three sets. And I show you there were four sets which were pretty easy. This is the fourth time that I'm repeating again. You need to learn the art of selecting the right set. The first two sets were pretty easy, right? Groups and conditionality and the DI one. And maybe the two more sets, the last set or maybe the pen one set, either of them, if you could have attempted it. I think the last set was much easier than the pen set. The three sets were very straightforward. You could have easily scored more than 98 percentile. Okay, if you had attempted this set. And believe me, all those three sets you could have completed in less than half an hour, 30 minutes time. Okay, and maybe more than 10, you had 10-12 minutes, maybe one or two question of maximizing and minimizing stuff, because those are independent questions, could have reached you more than 99 percentile range. Okay. Yes, obviously we are assuming here, when we are saying that you are attempting only three set, we assume that you attempt this three set with a bang on accuracy. You cannot say that I'll attempt three set and attempt 8 or 9 correct. Guys, when you attempt 8 or 9 correct, 9 correct means you would be at what, 27 minus 3, that's 24 marks. That's close to 92 percentile something. So that 90, so that's like the 90 percentile in fact, right? That's like the 90 percentile. So when you are aiming at three sets, your objective should be to getting all the three set bang on correct. Okay, so that is it about DILR section. Okay, now I hand over this analysis to Ajit sir.
And Jamin sir, thank you so much. Okay, now I have to do something about sharing my screen. So I'm going to share my screen and I am going to show them exactly what did today's paper feel like. What did today's paper feel like? It was exact CAT. Which exact CAT was it? This was CAT 2019 slot 2. Take it to the market, show it to anyone who has given CAT 2019 slot 2. If the exam went well, they are going to feel very familiar and very comfortable. If at all their CAT 2019 slot 2 did not go well, they are going to have absolute nightmares. This was a perfect replica of that slot. So what did we give you today? We gave you, as it happened, CAT 2019 slot 2 verbal was labeled almost by everyone as a moderate to difficult section, which is why you had that. So 25 in 40, 16 questions in reading comprehension, 3 in summary, 3 in parajumbling, and 3 questions in out of context. Overall difficulty level, as I said, moderate to difficult. Let's look at the passages. The first passage was racism in a fried chicken. 400 words, 4 questions. I have always done my RC analysis in 2 ways. I tell you what is the difficulty level of the passage, and then I'll tell you what is the difficulty level of the questions. And yes, some of you might be either surprised or shocked, or you must have been neither of the two. You actually became very smart and you said, if it's a new question, what I've listed on my sequence, the first question is applied information. So if at all you come across a question which you have never seen in your life, there should be no moral or emotional or family or historical compulsions to attempt that question if you don't understand it. So that's what was new in this one, applied information, which because it was new, that is the only reason I've labeled it difficult. For many of you, you are very good with critical reasoning. It might not be such a difficult question. Second question was tone. Third was logical purpose. Overall, the first passage was moderate to difficult in terms of questions, but in terms of readability, it was easy. Anybody who started with the first passage, I can understand because it's a very attractive passage. It is only the questions that will probably put you into a spin. I think I can always, on CAT, I am always going to take up this passage. Even if the questions are tricky, yes, I want to give it a shot because all the effort that you put into CAT preparation, 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is, you put it so for that confidence where you reach a point where you can read a passage confidently. Questions are always going to be there. From RC1, we went to RC2, the passage on Schadenfreude, where 4 questions, 439 words, slightly longer. Much of the passage was easy to read, but some aspects might just have been a bit tricky. Also, if you go, so this is one thing that I do very frequently. I look at the relativity of questions. Now, what happens here? Why would I call this passage moderate to read? Because if you started with the first passage, you might have gone through a bit of ups and downs and regression and going back to the passage here and there. And that is why you are not as fresh as you were in the first passage. So the moment you become a bit tired, you might feel like, hey, sir, matlab, if I had taken this first, this would have been so easy. But nahi, abhi thoda sa dimag laga liya. So now this seems like a moderate to read passage. Questions, 2 of them moderate, 2 of them very easy. Again, an applied information question, but this one was not so difficult. It was a fairly easy question. From the Schadenfreude, we went to a third passage, shorter. Because you had read Schadenfreude, this passage would be very easy to read compared to the previous one. And this, remember, this is what happens on CAT. Perceptions keep on building and they keep on changing, which is why we keep telling you from Endeavor, select first and then attempt. Don't go in the sequence. You might end up ruining your test for no reason at all. If you had done selection, this passage would have been the first one that you attempted, or maybe the previous passage, not the first passage, the one on racism. But anyways, easy to read passage, yes. One inference question, yes, it is difficult. I have always thought that questions which work on the lines of all of the following except which of the following cannot be inferred, they are, I will call them difficult questions because the effort that you put into solving a question where there is only one option to weaken or there is only one thing to, let's say, derive as an inference, here the effort becomes 3 times. So let's, for the sake of simplicity, let's say that a question where you have to do the same thing 3 times, derive 3 inferences, and thereby understand which of the 4 cannot be an inference. Let's call it a difficult question. And then you had a moderate level source of the passage, not very difficult, but if you had, for whatever reason, lost your concentration by the time you reach this question, this might not look like a very easy question. Fourth passage, intentionally put in there so that people will not get obsessed with RCs and will want to try the other questions also. Moderate to difficult in terms of reading, not standalone moderate to difficult. You've solved 3 passages before this. You've probably gone 25 minutes out of 40 by the time you reach here. Yes, your brain has already gone into a mode where it does not actively grasp everything, and that is why this should be classified moderate to difficult. If this were the first passage in our list, I would have called it moderate, not moderate to difficult. First question, main idea, fairly easy. Second and third questions, again, because of the exhaustion level, I am labeling them as moderate. And then there was a weaken question, all the following weaken except. The kind of question that if you really care about your accuracy, you would not want to attempt that question. Even if you are good with critical reasoning, you will want to do this question because it's a part of exact CAT 3. But if verbal is the first section on your actual test, you might not want to jump into that question unless you are like, I've shown you something very interesting today, something that I did not do in my previous analysis. Then we had 3 summary questions. What did CAT 2019 slot 2 do? It worked a lot on vocabulary. Summary questions, look up the summary questions. You will realize that the answer choices did play on vocabulary. And yes, that's what we did here. Tricky choices here are primarily on 2 parameters. One, The vocabulary used was a bit tough in the sense, if you have been preparing for CAT you for quite some time, and if you've been reading frequently, then yes, vocabulary will not be much of a problem for you. But if you have just started preparing for CAT, or you've been preparing for long, but for whatever reasons you did not like focus on vocabulary, CAT ka summary question is going to remind you that, oh, I should have given some look to vocabulary, because I understand the passage, but मेरे को options तो समझ में ही नहीं आ रहे. Why? Because I see new words and I don't know the meanings of these options. Question number 17, moderate to read, tricky choices. Question number 18, again a moderate question, tricky choices. Noxious confusion. Yes, the question is also difficult to read and the options are also very tricky, which is why I have labeled it outright as a difficult one. Then out of context questions. First one, very easy to read, but the choices were like, we've discussed this question when we created it, and trust me, in a team of 12 people, we did not have more than 3 people agreeing to any of the answers. That is a kind of, but then there was a logic behind this question. The moment I revealed the logic, everybody was like, ha. And we've exactly replicated a question that Kat used earlier. If you read the explanation, it says, never assume that a particular sentence is the first sentence. If you assume that, out of context is going to be a huge problem for you. So if you've taken that assumption, then yes, it was a very difficult question. If you knew that you should not take those assumptions, it was not such a very difficult question. Then we had a very contemporary passage in out of context. And then you had another one, slightly tricky, because again, books and women. So almost like in the first one, there were 2 close choices. In question number 22, I think it would be difficult for you. So in question number 20 and 22, you see a 180-degree contrast. The contrast is, in question number 20, apparently creating a sequence, because that's what Cat says, and out of context, create a sequence out of 4 so that you know which fifth does not fit into the sequence. Now on question number 20, you would have ended up making a sequence of all 5, and therefore you don't know which one to fit. Question number 22 mein, it's a completely polar opposite challenge, because sequence ही नहीं बन रहा. तो सीक्वेंस ही नहीं बन रहा, तो कोई बात नहीं. जस्ट बिकॉज इट इज वर्बल एबिलिटी डज नॉट मीन यू आर गोइंग टू लाइक गिव इट 100% शॉट टू एवरीथिंग. नहीं बन रहा है सीक्वेंस, तो रैंडमली मार्क करो. देयर इज नो नेगेटिव मार्किंग. Parajumbling, if parajumbling was not early in your sequence, you are going to regret missing out parajumbling, because I have given it a difficult or a moderate level. But trust me, question number 23 was not so difficult. It was a fairly easy question. Same with question number 24. Maybe the amount of time that you spent in something like a passage 1 or a passage 4, or something, the extra time that you might have spent in an out of context question, had you taken that time and put into parajumbles, you would have absolutely loved question numbers 23 and 24. So where does that bring us? That brings us to this. What should we have done to score? This is what I would love to see for people who have an expectation of a 98th percentile. And remember, when I write expected attempts and expected correct, I am factoring in. So when I say you have the scope of getting 3 incorrect, those 3 I am saying are RC questions. The non-RC verbal ability questions where there is no negative marking, those are not counted here. You might want to take expected attempts to 20. I don't mind. The difference between expected attempts and expected correct should not be more than 3 scoring questions, 3 negative marking questions. You cannot give me a 20 and 16 and then say, sir, the 4 that I got incorrect, all of them were in RCs. No, 18 and 15 is what I would love to see. Look at the effort that I have reduced in your difficult questions. Yes, I am ready to accept that no matter how much we prepare, getting 100% accuracy on verbal might not be easy. So let's be practical. Let's say that 4 attempts and 3 correct. So 18 and 15 is what I would love to see for people targeting a 98th percentile. That's what you see here, 100 percentile. And this is one of the lowest 100 percentiles that you will see. 54 out of a maximum possible score of 75. One of the lowest 100 percentiles that you will see on across all tests, CAT, Endeavor, any other player that you see, because it was a moderate to tough paper. But this paper last year on CAT also helped to bring down the verbal percentiles. Otherwise, people would have gone nuts. So 100 percentile would be around 54 and high. 99 percentile 46. The same 15 and 3 is what brings you to a score of approximately 42 for a 98 percentile. Look at the 80 percentile, 24. That means you select 8 questions in passages and you get exactly those 8 questions correct, and you do nothing else in the section, you reach an 80 percentile. Nothing can be easier than that. Trust me, I can take you back to the previous slide. It is very easy to identify just 8 questions to attempt out of those easy and moderate and get exactly 8 correct. That's what happens with the moderate to tough paper. The percentiles have to be brought down. What I've added today over this slide is two different approaches for people who want to score a 98 percentile in less than 40 minutes. Now, less than 40 doesn't mean 30 minutes. Sorry, that's not how it works when the paper is moderate to tough. It will probably be 37 or 38 minutes. I have two categories of test takers. Category 1, I love passages. People who love passages, they would have taken this sequence, started with passage 2, because it was a moderate passage. It's the first thing that you do on RCs. You have to get 4 out of 4 correct. Then you go to passage 3, you attempt 3 questions and get me 2 correct. Why? Because that was the passage where there was a tricky question at the end. Then you would have gone to either passage 1 or passage 4, and you would have wanted, if it is passage 1, you would want to get 3 out of 4 correct. Why? Because I said passage 1 is easy to read. By the time you finish passage 2 and 3, you have seen some questions, your confidence is up. There, when you come to passage 1 and you want to attempt moderate to difficult questions, you don't get so lost. The same questions, when they appear earlier in the section, they stress you out a lot. Because you've already attempted 7 questions and you're confident about 6 answers, the same questions later on will not be so much of a problem. And I said I belong to the conventional school, which says if you understand the passage well, it has to positively affect your performance in the questions. So this is what I would want to go if I were someone who depends a lot on his passages. This would be my timeline: 3 out of 4 correct in another 7 to 8 minutes. Passage 4, maybe 2 out of 3 correct. And this is where I said I am going to lose some questions. 1 incorrect here, 1 here, and 1 here. And then summaries, give it 6 minutes, get 2 correct. Why have I emphasized on summaries when I know that summaries had apparently 2 difficult questions? If you are good with passages, I want to believe you are equally good with summaries. So 2 correct in 6 minutes is what I would want. Out of context, parajumbling, you are tired, whatever it is, identify the easier one. The 4 minutes here factors in the possibility that you might start a question and then you have to waste time. I mean, you decide after 1 minute that this nahi ho raha hai, I want to leave this. I am okay with that also. Or maybe you are not category 1 student. You are a category 2 student who is not so very keen on investing time into passages. In that case, start with summaries. But sir, you said summary on RC. No, I have increased the time for summaries. Start with summaries. Get me 2 correct in 7 minutes. I'm ready to give you extra time here. Why? Because you are starting. It is the first thing that you do on the section. So obviously you want to give it some more time and get me that 2 correct. Whether you attempt 3 or 2, I don't care. I want 2 correct. Out of context, 2 correct in 6 minutes. Why? Because you decided to not pay so much time to RC. So obviously you have to get me out of context correct. Wait, sorry. Then I'll go to parajumbling. मेरे को भी यही लगा यार, मैंने कम लिखा है. But yes, if you are not so very keen on RCs, I should have not gone to the next slide because of the assumption. But कम ही करना है because you see parajumbling, I'm asking you to do all 3 correct. Sir, 3 correct करो. You said you don't like RCs, so then get me 3 correct out of 3 in parajumbling in 8 minutes. Take 9 minutes. Then you go to passage 2. Then you go to passage 3. Then you go to passage 1. The category is, can we skip RCs please? Look at the number of attempts. 7 attempts. 7 correct out of 9. Passages had 16 questions. This is 7 correct out of 9 out of 16. That is barely 50% of the RCs. Yes, that is also possible. You just need that strategy. You just need that clarity. You just need that confidence and obviously the focus. When you are solving a question, focus on that question. Don't worry about other things. So if that means, like I said last time, you have to go through the section and identify which questions to attempt first, do it. Anyways, on all the questions that you select incorrectly, the difficult ones, the trap questions, you waste a lot of time. So, all the time that you waste there, थोड़ा सा पहले time spend कर लो and identify कर लो which questions to attempt first. Anyways, that's it from my side. I think Saurabh sir is going to take up quant here. And till we meet again, all the best. Stay safe. Saurabh sir, the screen is all
Yes, yes.
yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Ajit sir. Okay. Sorry for the glitch that I had. Small mistake. Exit 3. I believe after mock cat 12, exit 3 was probably a moral booster. I'm sure it would have felt, everybody would have felt, yes, we can do it. We can do something. But again, I keep warning you, do not be emotional. A paper which is difficult is probably more in your advantage because you have all worked very hard. When you work very hard, it is in your advantage. A difficult paper is in your advantage. An easy paper, everybody will be able to solve. So in an easy paper, you do get a good score, but your percentile may fall down. And it's more important to get percentile rather than score. So don't be too happy with an easier paper. Yes, this was a little bit easy. Yes. Again, we'll discuss the topic distribution, the mapping of the questions, whether they were easy, difficult, expected attempts, and percentiles. A fairly distributed question this time, a paper this time, as opposite to the last paper, which was much biased. No question, no chapter had 3 questions. Everything just 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, single and 2. So very fairly distributed paper. 2 questions on allegations and mixtures, functions, 2 geometry, numbers at 2, permutation combination. Also there were 2 questions. So 2 questions from 8 chapters. Permutation combination, profit loss, set theory, and even time speed distance TSD. And single questions from the remaining 9, surds and indices, quadratic equations, averages was there luckily this time, coordinate geometry 1, inequalities, percentage, progression, time and work, and triangles. So this was a fairly spread out paper. Although there were just 3 easy questions, there were 18 moderate. Out of the 25, 18 were moderate and 4 were difficult. Luckily, this time there was no very difficult question. Just 4 difficult, 3 easy, and 18 moderate. That's where you could have said that, yes, this is something doable. 18 moderate questions. And sometimes questions are not just moderate, they are actually easier. But one small twist in the paper, in the question, makes it a little moderate. One small twist will change it from easy to moderate or moderate to difficult. So ideally, otherwise, maximum questions are easy or moderate. The first easy question was permutation and combination. You had to make 5-digit numbers which are multiples of 11. This was a very easy question. Probably everybody would have got this question within seconds rather than minutes. This was a time saver. And similarly was set theory. 2 questions on finance and accounts. Some people taking only finance, some only account. Data was given. At least 175 something was given. And there were 2 questions. So again, just draw a Venn diagram and probably 2 questions can be answered within 1.5 minutes. So these 3 questions were absolutely easy and time savers. Moderate questions were 18 moderate questions. Percentage, the first one starting itself was a very easy question. I would again call this easy rather than moderate, but there were small things which would probably make it moderate. It was about some politicians, 90% of them, 10% of the politicians are corrupt, things like that. Some were corrupt, some were not corrupt, some won, some lost. So out of these, some won and some lost, and then a percentage is asked. So quite a very easy standard question. Something very similar was a standard search and indices question based on the theory A raised to x is equal to B raised to y is equal to C raised to z. 3 numbers given to you. And of course, you would probably remember that A multiplied by B is C, as there is some sort of a question like that, a theory. If you can remember that, this was again a very easy question. The only thing was that the numbers were not directly visible as A multiplied by B is C. There was some small modification to be done. Quadratic equations, finding the real roots. Powers were given, 7 raised to something, something. So that made it a little difficult. Instead of easy, it became a little moderate. And of course, the better part of the question was none of these roots will match with the real roots. Find the real roots. So the roots given in the options were said that they would not match. So that was the important part of this question. There are 2 questions on numbers. In the first one, product of 3 consecutive numbers is given to you. And you are asked what is the summation of the cubes of the 3 numbers. All you had to do was either factorize or try to judge what are the roots, what could be the central number. Get those 3 numbers very quickly, either by trial and error, judgment, or actual calculation. And that's it. Find the summation of the cubes. Again, you can go by the unit digit for the summation of the cubes. Once you have the 3 numbers, you could have gone even by the unit digit. So very easy question, quite easy question. The only thing was getting those 3 numbers. The number given was a larger number. It was 85,000 somewhere around. The second easy question was related to PQRS. 4 numbers were given to you. P square plus Q square is something. R square plus S square is something. PQR. And you are to find PQ minus RS or something of that sort. Just standard equations. Just standard equations. Ideally, again, this was an easy question, but to realize something that, okay, this is where you use it. That is why I put it into a moderate question. The next 2 easy ones, moderate ones were alligation and mixture. Again, as I said, the first question was 4 mixtures, and that is why I put it into moderate. If you understood the question, it was a very easy question. But because there were 4, you will start reading, you will start focusing on a lot of data, and you will think that, Bapre, there will be something great. You start expecting something to be difficult. That is what made this question moderate. Otherwise, it was an easy question. 4 mixtures are given. Only one of them had R, a liquid R, and that's where you just correlate. And that would give you an answer within, but probably even mentally, maybe mentally. A few numbers you write and you will have your answer. That's sort of an easy question. But the only thing was, it was this, you would have been distracted by the time just by looking at 4 ratios, 4 mixtures with ratios given to you. Similarly, the second one, 837 liters were there. The ratio of 2 liquids is given, and then a little bit of follow-up, and you would have an answer quite quickly. The next was an average question. Some team of 22 players were there, and their heights were given, something related to the heights. If 2 people were not included, the height would change like this. So form 2 equations and get an answer. Quite a moderate question. Time and work, 5 inlets, 2 outlets. The inlets together Now this has nothing to do with actually the number 5 and 2. There is one inlet and one outlet. You could have done it that way also. So inlets alone take 12 hours. Inlets with the two outlets would take 16 hours. So what time would it take to fill the empty 75% or fill 75% of the tank? Again, a very standard type of a question, just a moderate thing. One time speed distance question, PSD, was very easy. Leaving in the morning at 10 a.m. and 9 a.m., meeting at 3 p.m., what was the ratio of the speeds? This is a very easy question, very easy. But there was a small problem. They had given additional unwanted information. Had their speed been this or this more and this, some additional information is given which has nothing to do with the question. If you focus on that additional information, it becomes a little bit difficult to get the question. The first part of the question was itself enough to answer get the ratio. One person leaves at 10, one at 9, and they meet at 3. So it was a very simple question here. This was enough to get an answer within 10 seconds. That's the reason I'm putting it into moderate. The second part where you get probably distracted. Another time speed distance question. Dr. Rao, traveling at 30 miles per hour, he would reach at 9:30, at 40, he would reach at 9:25. What should be that speed to reach at particular time? Very standard question, very standard. Just there was one small problem probably in this question where instead of miles per hour, kilometers was written. That's the only thing. Profit and loss, ideally easy, but just a lengthy part. Manufacturer sales to wholesaler, wholesaler to retailer, retailer to customer. And this is where we think that, okay, this would be a difficult question. Let's leave this question. An easy part, quite an easy part. If you just focus on what is to be found and how much, just 2-3 small calculations and it would be there. Second, another profit and loss question was also easy. You buy same quantity at 2 different rates because the quantity is the same, the average would do. And then you're selling at a particular rate. How many did you buy or what was the quantity bought or sold? So a selling price is given and this was a very easy question. The other few moderate questions were permutation and combination. 4 digits were given 0, 3, 6 and 7 and only 3 and 6 were to be repeated once. So that's why I've written 0, 3, 3, 6, 6, 7. And you are supposed to form numbers greater than 2 legs. Quite easy, not difficult. There was one question on functions which was easy, a moderate and one difficult. Fx and gx are given. Find f of gx, g of 1 and g of f of 1. The better part why it was moderate is because it was just for 1. X was supposed to be 1. That is what made this question very moderate. Otherwise, this could have been a little difficult. Get to understand that you're not supposed to solve for x. You're supposed to solve for x is equal to 1. If that is what you can identify, this is easy. Anybody who got just frightened because of functions and looking at such an expression would leave this question. Inequalities and spatial properties. 100-meter fence was used to build a rectangular plot. What could be the maximum area? Maybe you've come across such questions already. So easy one. Geometry. Perpendicular medians. I think you have already seen some questions in your marathon. You also seen some questions in your essentials, maybe even one in your test series. Perpendicular medians, finding the area, just a standard procedure. Coordinate geometry, this was a little different. The way it was written was a little different. PQ is bisected by the y-axis, QR bisected by the x-axis. If you could not get the direct reasoning of this question, maybe you could have plotted. The moment you plot a little more accurately, you will realize, okay, this is easy. So this was also quite a moderate question. There were some difficult questions, 4 difficult or time-consuming questions. One was the progressions, where a summation of a series was to be done. 3 upon 7 into 10 plus 3 upon 10 into 13 and so on. A series, an expansion. So if you remembered your methods, this would be quite okay. Maybe a little time consuming, otherwise a standard question. Functions here was a little difficult. Maybe not very difficult, but yes, time consuming and frightening. F of xy was f of x upon y that was given to you, and twice of g of x is equal to g of 2002 by x. So quite a little frightening something. Again, if you got the gist, if you've done functions well, not very difficult, but just time consuming. A little different this time again was geometry. The end radius of a circle is given. The circle touches one of the sides of the triangle, and the two parts of the triangle, the side, are divided in two parts that were given. I think 24 was the end radius, 36, 48 were the two parts of one side. And you were asked, what is the longest side of this triangle? So a little calculative, a little different. Maybe you do not know what to do. So this was a difficult question. And a similar difficult question, something seen for the first time probably again. Equilateral triangle, the three corners are cut parallel to the opposite sides to get a hexagon. 5 sides of the hexagon, 5 consecutive, obviously 5 are consecutive. 5 consecutive sides of the hexagon are mentioned, and the 6th is to be found. So this was a little different. Maybe it will take some time to calculate to understand the theory. So this could have been avoided. 3 easy, 18 moderate, 4 difficult questions. Luckily, there was no very difficult question this time. Again, for 98 percentile, what would you expect? How much would you score? 3 easy, I would expect everybody to get those 3. Nobody would leave them. The problem part is sometimes the set theory questions were at the end. Nearing the end, the last 2 or the last 21, 22, 22, 23. So that is what is one thing you will have to understand. Make sure that even if the easy questions are at the end, you should be able to reach them at least. Nobody should say that, sir, end pe pahuncha hi nahi. I could not reach the end. पीछे easy questions से मेरा ध्यान ही नहीं गया, पहुंच ही नहीं पाया. That should not happen. 18 moderate questions. I would expect you to attempt at least 14. Maybe you could not get some questions which are doable. You thought that they were not doable. You left them fairly good. I would accept that part. Out of the 4, I'm only expecting you to solve 1. And of course, if you can solve one more moderate question, you can ignore one of these parts. So this was not compulsory to solve, but yes, maybe somebody would have solved one of those 4 difficult questions. And that makes it 18 attempts. 18 attempts out of 25. Yes, this was an easy paper. So 40 minutes, 18. You got to be prepared for speed. If there is an easy paper, that means if the quality is down, the quantity has to be up. If the quality goes down, the quantity must go up. Easy paper must have great number of attempts. So make sure that you are ready for speed. Excuse me. 18 attempts, maybe 2 or 3 wrong, 16 correct, 2 incorrect, could give you somewhere around a score of 45. 45 score should be achieved for a 98 percentile. 98 percentile, if it is what you're targeting, you should have reached a score of 45 in this paper. 95, obviously now you can see the numbers, 40 marks, 90 percentile at 34 and 80 at 25. Imagine 25. That means if you can attempt somewhere around 9 or 10 moderate questions, 3 easy and maybe 7, 8 moderate questions, 80, crossing 80 is absolutely easy, absolutely easy. Even crossing 90 would have been easy in this paper if you had a little bit of a speed. You attempt 15 questions, you are at somewhere around at least 40 marks. Maybe 35, 36. Crossing 90 should not have been difficult in this paper. 99 is at 51 and 100 percentile at 58 plus. That is upper range is obviously going to be very tough. So not a very difficult paper, quite an easy and moderate paper. The overall scenario would have been this. You already seen the verbal quantum DI. For an overall 100 percentile, the score should have been 159 marks. 159 in your 2 hours. Yes. 99 is at 116, 98 at 107. 107 is 98. 99, 91 marks for 95 percentile, and of course 76 for 90. 76, nobody should target anything less than 90 percentile. We do give, say, just for the sake of comparisons, to make sure that even if you are right now below 90, push up, work a little harder. You still have 2 weeks to go, 3 weeks to go. Work a bit harder and cross 90. Crossing 90 should not be very challenging. Rising out of that, rising beyond 90, yes, that will be a challenge. But crossing 85, 90 should not be a challenge. Just a matter of hard and smart work. Right? So this is what I believe is today's paper like XZ3. Make sure to note down these numbers.